Okay. Hello, friends. My name is Eilish, and I am one of the Blue STEM Publicity co-chairs. So I'm going to be in charge of the little Zoom shindig today. We have a representative from ISLE here handling our technical support with Zoom and stuff. They'll just be like in the background with their camera turned off. And then, of course, we have our author, Rebecca Balcárcel,
Oh,
and very excited to have her today.
thank you for having me. It's really cool to be here.
Yay! So we are gonna have each class introduce themselves. Just like say hi and give me your teacher's name so I know who's who when I call on you guys for questions. And then we will have Miss Balcarcel introduce herself, and then we'll get started with questions. Okay? Okay. So let's see. We'll start with, I'm looking at names. If Miss Wallace's class wants to introduce themselves, just say like what grade level you guys are and where you are. Maybe.
Hi, this is fourth grade at Briar Glen Elementary. They're very good.
Love it. And then Miss Julian's class.
Hi, this is fourth grade, also at Briar Glen.
And then our last class, Miss Fujiura. Did I say that right?
Hi, nicely.
I love the enthusiasm.
Yeah. You guys look ready for something fun.
Okay, thank you guys for introducing yourselves. And whenever you're ready.
Okay, well, thanks for having me. It's wonderful to be with you. I'm Rebecca Balcárcel, and you are about to join an elite club of people who know how to say my name. Uh, it's Rebecca. Oh, I wonder if it's backwards for you. Okay, Balcárcel, and it's like the ball in the car, and you're not on your cell. Balcárcel, and the car gets the gas. Balcárcel. So that's who I am. And I wrote this book, Shine on Loose Bellies. And I also have another book. If you liked this book, you might want to look at my earlier book, The Other Half of Happy. It might be in your library, possibly. And I'll just tell you a couple of things about me, and then we'll let you ask questions. So in the book, there are a couple of neat things that get mentioned, and one is hot chocolate, but it's not regular hot chocolate. It's called like chocolate. And in Guatemala, I bought this in Guatemala. The hot chocolate looks like this. It's a like a hard cake of brown. It's made from cacao beans, and I saw people smushing up the beans. They roast them, they grind them up, and then they pat them into these cakes. And you put this in boiling milk and you drink it, especially with cinnamon. So that's the hot chocolate recipe that's in the back of the book. Another thing that's in the book is this little toy. Um, uh, my dad called this a capirucho, and here's another smaller one. And all you do is try to get the thing, get this thing onto here, get this little container onto the stick, and I'm really bad at it. But my dad was super good at it. And in the book, you'll meet someone who is super good at it. And the person you'll meet is a half sister of the main character. And you may have already read about her, but that is actually based on real life. And this is a picture of my half sister and me. And then this is when we first met. Unlike the book, we did not meet until we were grown-ups because we did not know she even had been born. But when we found out, we discovered that she's an awesome person, and our family got bigger. And here's a picture of me with her again, and I'm visiting her in Guatemala let's see, in 2022. So the half sister in the book is based on my real half sister. So that's some fun stuff about the book. And then I also wanted to show you just one more thing. This is some of the drafts of this book. So I wrote the book and then I improved it and then I improved it some more and more and more and more. So if you feel like in your own writing that your teacher's asking you to fix it too many times, I promise you, if it's not this many times, you I win that. I've revised a whole lot, and you'll find out that revision is actually kind of fun because making your writing really shine is very rewarding. So don't be afraid to revise. It's actually when the writing gets really good. So okay, so I want to let you ask questions.
Okay, so I am just gonna call on classes across the way you guys are on my Zoom at the top, and we will try to get to at each class at least a couple times. So we will start with Miss Julian's class. You can ask your question whenever you're ready.
Here, come on over, Anya. She's Hi. So say your name and give your question.
So my name is Enya, and my question is, what inspired you to write this book?
Oh, good question. And yeah, so a lot of things, like I mentioned, my half sister, but one of the main things is that my grandpa had this magical room. He called it the shop. And I would walk in that room and I would smell sawdust and I would see all these mysterious tools on the wall. And there would be electronics in one corner and woodworking tools in another corner. And I just had this feeling like anything could be made in here. It was a maker space before they used that phrase. So that room made me want to put a place like that in my book and a person kind of like my grandfather in the book. And my grandfather was really funny and inventive. And so if you read the book, you'll meet Mr. Mac, and he doesn't have a shop, but he has a garage. And his garage looks like, the garage at Apple or Google or something with lots of computer stuff in it and lots of other things to tinker with. And he invents things, he writes computer programs, and that was inspired by my grandfather. So my family really inspires me when I write books. Another thing that inspires me is to think about, what kind of message do do I wish I had heard as a kid myself? And I feel like in this book, Shine On Luz Belis, Luz is very concerned that she be a star. At first, she's a soccer star. And then she thinks, okay, now I need to be a computer programming star and a robotics star. And she thinks this is why her parents love her, appreciate her. And you probably realize that that's kind of wrong. And she discovers that, yeah, that's wrong. It's not only her achievements or being a star that makes her a valuable person. She just is valuable because she's a person and her parents love her anyway. And I might be a little bit like that myself. I like to get, do everything wonderfully and perfectly and get lots of praise. But it turns out that that's not really the most important thing. The most important thing is to be a good person, to enjoy learning stuff and doing things, not to get a trophy, but for its own sake. So I guess you could say I was inspired by my own, like the lesson I wanted to learn earlier as a kid, and I stuck that in the book. So, what a good question. Thanks.
Was a really good question. So next we will have a question from Miss Wallace's class.
All right, hello. Go ahead, say your name.
My name is Allison.
This is Allison, and her question was, what is your favorite book?
Oh, Allison, that is a tough question. I have so many favorite books. I mean, okay, just last night I read The Hotel Balazar by Kate DiCamillo. It's great. Everything Kate DiCamillo writes is great. You might have heard of The Tale of Despereaux. That's especially famous. But I love Meg Medina's writing, like Mercy Suarez Changes Gears. I love Christina Soontornvat. She's kind of my friendish per I mean, and she wrote The Tryout kind of recently, a graphic novel. Before that, A Wish in the Dark was one of my favorite books. Classic books, I also love Bridge to Terabithia, Charlotte's Web. I mean, it's just endless how many great books there are. Um, gosh, I feel like I might want to shout out another one. Jasmine Varga writes amazing books also. Other Words for Home was her first book. I want to say it won a Newbery Honor. So, but she has a new book out and I want to read that too. So that's a long answer, but I have so many favorite books.
Thank you.
Can vouch, I just read Jasmine Marga's new book and it's great. There's a turtle in it. And I
A
was very
turtle.
excited about a turtle.
Okay. Yes, the
So
turtle's very important, I'm hearing.
it's good stuff.
Okay.
Okay. So now we will take a question from Miss Fujiura's class.
And I have one question for you, and it is, why did you want Luz to love soccer?
Oh, well, okay. So I am glad you asked that. Soccer is a big sport in my family. So my dad was a soccer coach. He was also a high school teacher of English, but he coached the soccer team as well. So I would go to games and he would watch games on TV. Of course, he didn't call it soccer, he called it football, which most of the world calls it, because you play it with your foot. It makes sense, doesn't it? Um, and so soccer is just like part of the world I'm in, and it's so important to people I know. I don't play myself, but I I like to keep track a little bit, especially of women's soccer, because by the way, United States women's soccer is very high level, very amazing. And they won a gold medal some years ago. And yeah, so I guess I just like it, even though I'm not as deep into it as my dad was. I really remember fondly talking about it with him and seeing his excitement about it. And he was actually born the same year as his favorite soccer player, who is known as Pelé, a Brazilian famous soccer player of decades past. But yeah, so I guess I included soccer because it's part of my world. Now, I did also need for the story, I needed Luz to have something to lose. Like she had to lose something in order to be pushed to explore something new. And that's true about every book you read. You'll notice in the very first chapter, probably the character is struggling with something. They either have a big problem that happens, they lose something important to them. Somehow they're thrust into a challenge. And then the whole book is how they handle that challenge. So I needed her to have a challenge. And, you know, why not soccer?
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. And then we'll circle back around to Miss Julian's class and let everybody do another question.
Hello, my name is JJ, and why did you want to become an author?
Oh, so JJ, that's a great question too. Um, you know what? I wanted to become an author really because I was a reader. And not all authors actually were big readers. But when I was about your age, my mom handed me my first novel, and I thought, oh, this is super special. Because I saw that she read books all the time, and I kind of wondered, like, what's the big deal about that? Why is she so spending hours looking at pages and turning them? But when I got my first book of my very own, it was The Little House in the Big Woods. And I read it and I found that it was like virtual reality headsets. I was living in the world of the book. I was hearing the voices and seeing the places, and that felt like magical to me. And then when I was about 12, I wrote my first short story that I kind of took seriously and I was very conscious about. And again, it was like stepping into another reality as I wrote out the world of this story. And I also loved language. I thought it was really cool how sentences could go and how stories could go. And it was just really fun. And so I hoped that I could keep having that experience as a grown-up. Uh, and I decided that even if I never earned any money from it or I was never published, that I still wanted to write because it just was so rewarding. And I started to learn things about myself too through the stories. So, I mean, that's why I became a writer. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and then Miss Wallace's class.
Hi, my name is Sean. And how long did it take you to make Shine on Lulu's Fleece?
Ah, how long did it take me? Well, Sean, this one I was a little bit lucky because we had this thing called a pandemic and the whole world shut down. And so I was able to write this book more quickly than I expected. So it took me about 6 months. And that was from like planning and getting started to really having a draft that I had rewritten only a couple of times. Now, then it takes another year for it to be published or even longer. So that's a separate process. But just my writing and drafting, about 6 months. But to compare, my first book took 6 years. So, it depends on the book a lot. But it turned out, I mean, the pandemic was so hard and tragic for so many people. But there was a silver lining for me, which is that I had time to work on this book. So actually it went really fast. And I think that's why. Good
right.
question.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and Miss Fujiura's class.
Hi, my name is Landon. Why does Luz like coding in the book?
Ooh, let's see. Well, Landon, I would say that she likes coding because I got very curious about coding too. And I got very curious about robotics, especially Lego Mindstorm robots. And I was watching YouTube videos about classrooms and kiddos in robotics clubs, um, making the robots do different little things like follow a little line on the floor or pick up ping pong balls. And I just thought it was fun. So I thought, ooh, I want to put that in a book. But I also knew that a lot of girls, especially Latina girls like me, were not really told that computers and robotics was the kind of thing that they might want to do in their lives, especially as a profession. And I discovered that um, very few women are in that field. And it's not that they have to go. And of course, men should enjoy that field too. But since there's so few women, it's probably not that they don't want to. It's probably that it just hasn't been encouraged. And it didn't occur to them like, maybe I could code, maybe I could do robotics. And so I wanted my book to tell those young girls, especially, yes, that's a possibility for you. And to tell boys also that, of course, it's a possibility for you too. But girls may not have ever heard that before. So that's another sort of a side motivation. But mostly I just did it because I wanted her to do something fun.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll circle back to the beginning again with Miss
Okay.
Julian's class.
Okay. And my question is, how many books have you wrote?
Oh, So I've written two novels, and that's the Shine On, but also the other half of Happy. And then I co-edited an anthology, which means that I asked lots of writer friends to submit short stories to one book where we collected all of them together. And I wrote a story for that too. So the whole book is like 20 stories, and mine is just one of them. And that book is called Boundless. And it's maybe for a little bit older uh, people, young adults. But I had a lot of fun putting that together and having not only writing, but also learning how to help other writers make their stories really good to be in the book. And I even had a book of poems published by a little tiny press, the Pecan Grove Press, like 20 years ago. And that book is now free on my website because you know what happens to small presses, like little publishers that are really tiny? Sometimes if the person who runs them stops running them, then it just dies. And so this publisher has now disappeared, but at least my book is still online just for free as a PDF, you know. So I guess that's four books, you know, but really two novels. Good question.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, and Miss Wallace's class.
Hi, I'm Ralph, and I'm in fourth grade.
And what's your question?
My question is, what genre of books do you like?
Oh, okay. So I write contemporary realistic. That's what they call my book. But I like to read kind of everything. I mean, I enjoy fantasy. I enjoy mystery. Um, I'm getting into graphic novels more. And so I guess you could say I'm like I explore beyond what I myself enjoy writing the most. Um, I guess contemporary though really is my favorite. Yeah, but then like Kate DiCamillo's work, the book I read last night, you know, the Hotel Balzar, it feels kind of realistic, but then there's a lot of magical elements. And the next book I write myself, well, I'm working on two books right now. I'm writing a mystery that's kind of like the Boxcar Children, which is an old series, but I recommend it still. Um, and I'm also writing a book about a Guatemalan baby who was adopted to the United States. And that book has magical realism in it. So, you know, I'm playing with magical realism, I'm playing with mystery, but I guess realistic contemporary is my home base. Yeah. Good
Thank
question,
you.
Ralph. You're welcome.
Okay, and Miss Fujiwara's class. That's your question.
My name is Emily. And my question is, where do you like to make your books?
Oh, right here. I have a picture of my desk. So at home, I mean, you know what? I'm not always at my desk. Sometimes I need to hang out in the living room or at the dining table or in the backyard if the weather's nice. And I take my MacBook and I I am happy it's somewhat portable. But actually my desk does feel like a home base or a headquarters because I might have some notes about the book on paper, or I might have little notes about my characters. And sometimes I have a little mascot. I'll show you. Let's see. Here he is. Just looking at Totoro helps me get in the mood for writing. And sometimes I talk to him and say, what am I going to do about this character? So, yeah, my writing space is mostly my desk, but I like to carry my laptop around to other places too. Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
question. You're welcome, Emily.
Okay, friends, we will do one more question from each class.
Okay.
So we'll go back to the beginning with Miss Julian's class, and each group can have one more question. Okay?
My name is Sammy. My question is, what made you interested to start writing this book?
Ooh. So, Sammy, besides my family, like my grandfather and my half-sister, another thing that made me interested in writing Shine On Loose Lilies was I wanted to have a friend relationship that was not only kid to kid, but also like kid to adult. And they call this intergenerational friendship. So what it means is that you have a friend who's like a grandparent person or an older person. And it was somewhat inspired by my grandfather, like I mentioned, but Mr. Mac in the book becomes Luz's really good friend. He teaches her lots of things. He gives her lots of wisdom and tells her some funny stories. And she learns a lot from him about electronics, about computers, but also it turns out he has a grandson who's got autism. And so they talk about that a little bit. And that is, making her world bigger. So I really, I mean, in addition to lots of things that inspired the book, this idea of having a friend who's an elder was important to me too, because our elders, they have so many neat stories and experiences to learn from. And I wanted to model that in the book. So good question, Sammy.
Sammy.
Hi, my name is Emma, and my question is, what is your favorite book you've made?
Oh, Emma, this is like asking me to choose between my children. I like all the books. Sometimes the book I'm working on is the book I like. But actually right now I'm kind of annoyed with the book I'm working on, so that's not true right now. Sometimes, as you write a book, you start to kind of get sick of the book and then you love the book again. And so I'm in the I'm sick of it right now stage. But I guess my first book has a special place in my heart, the other half of Happy. Probably because it's very autobiographical. And that means the main character is a lot like me, and she faces a lot of incidents that I faced in my real life. So I put a lot of myself in that book, in that character. So but you know what? Loose is such a fun book with all the computer stuff, and I don't know. Hard to answer. I guess I'll say the other half of Happy, but I don't know. I love them all. Good question, Emma.
Thank you.
Okay, and our last question.
Last question.
My name is Etta, and my question is, what do you do when you're stuck while writing?
Oh, so I am a little stuck right now, and here's some things I'm doing. First of all, I try to like get away from the exact piece. So I'm gonna write some poems about the story. Excuse me, instead of just staring at the chapter I'm struggling with, I'm like closing that file and getting out maybe a blank book or opening a new document and doing something totally different, related but different. So writing a poem instead. I also might listen to music that's in the mood of the book, and it gets me kind of inspired and helps my mind kind of loosen up and flow a little better. I might also go take a walk because somehow looking at the big sky and the big world, especially if the weather's nice, it sort of, I don't know, it just kind of opens me up to newer ideas and possibilities for the book. And yeah, it just helps me get unstuck. I'll also go and read, and maybe I'll read in the same genre of the book, but maybe I'll read nonfiction or poetry, or I'll read nonfiction that relates to the book, like the new book that's about adoption. I might go and read about adoption, or my mystery that I'm just starting to work on. It has a lot of trains in it, so I might read about trains. And that way I can kind of give my brain a little break, and then when I come back to the actual chapter or the scene, I feel, I guess, replenished, and I'm not just empty anymore. I'm filled up with inspiration, and that way I can type the next word. If I'm still having trouble, I'll set a timer, like on my phone or an actual kitchen timer, and I'll say, okay, Rebecca, just write for 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, just sit here and type something. If it's bad, that's fine. If it's not capitalized right, that's fine, just something. And after 5 minutes, well, maybe I'll go 10 minutes, and then pretty soon I've been writing for an hour and I've tricked myself into writing. So I have lots of ways to try to unstick myself because I need all of them right now because I am a little stuck right now. So I'm glad you asked that question. Thank you.
Okay, friends, thank you so much for all of your great questions and for coming today. And thank you so much to our author for joining us today. We appreciate it so much.
I had a great time being with you. Thanks for having me.
Okay,
Bye.
bye, friends.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.